If you do remember, or if you're not that young, even if you're Gen Z, you would remember this. It's 15 years since we promulgated our new constitution. 15. So if we go back to 2010, the wow, it's a cold morning. That's why my pronunciation is even escaping me. When we celebrated having a new constitution, we said it's a new dawn for the country. In fact, we looked at it from different angles and spheres. We got to a place where we're saying that this is going to turn around the country in the way that we were doing business, in the way that our country was going to be viewed, in the way that we're even going to relate with our neighbors, either internationally, regionally, or locally. And the new dawn that we're talking about is not the dawn that we didn't see. We had already put it on paper, all the way from land reforms, from the way we were supposed to conduct our elections, to the different areas that were a problem in this country. And for anybody who remembers, even the structures for appointments of our leaders in this country, more so the president, it was put into a proper framework that we celebrated as a country. And if you do remember back then as well, in the way that we would do this, every other thing was put into a proper structure. But then later on, we started getting into these problems, either through late implementation, a direct denial to implement, or just finding ways within law to not act in accordance with the law. With that in mind, then, it's also clear for us to not call this a new constitution. It's not a new constitution whatsoever. It's not. It is our constitution, which is essentially our current constitution. So this morning, we picked a couple of areas as a look-up TV that we think are the bottlenecks of the current constitution. And we're asking the question, is it a failure as a nation to push for the implementation of this constitution, or is it the failure of our leaders to see to the full implementation of our Kenyan constitution? Yesterday, we did get a lot of feedback from majority of you who said you need to clarify and talk on these areas. If indeed we're going to have positive conversations about where we are as a country 15 years on. From mass deportations in this country, a direct contradiction of court orders in this country. And I do remember one James telling me, look here, in this country, there's nothing like court orders if you are a president, if you are a member of parliament, or if you have some sort of money with you. Have the courts also failed to properly interpret the law and come in with proper powers that are bestowed by them, by this constitution, to straighten things in this country? Those are the questions that we are asking this morning. We're going to read for you excerpts of members of parliament, leaders alike, who have come out to prove that indeed, even as we talk about us being 15 years on in this document, on ground, like they say, things are completely different. Where were you 15 years ago? And has this document helped you change how you view life and the country at large? Point number 2 this morning. something is happening in the north of this country. As we talk about these issues this morning, jubilant forces have come into the country. In fact, this morning, they are thanking Kenya for a warm welcome into Turkana County. They've taken over farms. They've taken over families this morning as we speak. Some of them have taken over some property. They're claiming property from Kenyans in this country. And so this morning again, we are asking the question, do we need for the president and the security forces in this country to be pushed to the wall by the opposition? And I say opposition quotes as that may be, to act and straighten things in the north of Kenya. What needs to happen? Some of the stories have been covered on our social media platforms at Lookup TV, across all of them. You will see some of the pictures that we're getting from the northern part of the country. And some dailies this morning are also asking a question on exactly what needs to happen for peace to be restored in the northern part of Kenya. Who are the jubilant forces, and why hasn't the government acted in speed to make sure that things are back to where they need to be? Talk to us at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. We do have a lot that we're looking at this morning. Let me just take you across to your dailies this morning, so we know what it is that you're waking up to. It is the Daily Nation that we're going to start with. What is it that they are talking about? It's a big story here on why Raila saved Sakaja. If you've been following this story, then you did know that just the day before yesterday, Sakaja was a man under siege. In fact, 87 MCAs had already appended signatures to a motion that would see Sakaja, the current governor of Nairobi County government, impeached. In fact, it was to be the latest governor to be taken straight to the Senate to either go home or be saved again, just like we've seen that process go. But now, Raila Amolo Odinga, the former Prime Minister, called members of the County Assembly of Nairobi, and we do know that ODM forms a majority of them, into top-notch, as they said, conversations at his current home. And he told them, we've already spoken to the governor. He's going to address all of your grievances. And also the president followed suit and also spoke to a couple of them, who then later were promised that indeed all the grievances that they had that saw them append to those signatures that would see Sakaja go home could be solved by the governor. But a lot of questions that we have to ask again on this one. Did they follow law? Is that what the law states? Indeed. Now this is what they're saying. Worry about let's see exactly what it is that they're talking about. Here is what they spoke about, that all the grievances that the members of the county assemblies had will be solved by Sakaja. And also the president did promise that he was going to work with the county boss to make sure that indeed those issues have also been solved. So he's not going to Senate, yeah? But some of them vowed that they're waiting to see if indeed it will solve those issues. And if not, they'll come back again. How do you think it's going to go? You can talk to us at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. There's also a story here about how now you have to worry about disruptive poll campaigns in the capital city if governor and deputy are ousted, all right, if they do not solve those issues again within that period that they promised that they're going to solve them. There is also a story here on page 4 on fear of a showdown with former DP Rigathi Gachagua in by-election and impact on 2027, and concerns broad-based government critics exploiting ouster plot to derail Unity Pact. You're going to read that particular story right here on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Big story here on Governor Step Up of resistance against executive decrees. That story has been covered on page 6, and it's part of what we're going to talk about this morning with our guests who are walking into the studio shortly after this. It is what the law states versus what the reality on the ground is, especially on the PFM Act, which is quite clearly stipulated in the law that everything, when it comes to how counties are supposed to do business, it's supposed to be electronic. But governors are talking tough this morning. In fact, they're telling the president, there's nothing you would do about it. That even when the controller budget looks at how monies that the counties are spent, she is supposed to refer to the electronic means of procurement. But up to now, if you read those notes, she keeps on saying that majority, if not all, of the county governments are not doing procurement electronically. What does the law state, especially the PFM Act? We talk about that this morning as well. Also on page 2, there's this story that we've been covering through and through on puzzle of ghost schools, learners and lost billions. To be exact, we did reveal that they've lost 3.7 billion shillings. That's a lot of money that is getting lost to ghost schools, you know. And that story has been covered on page 2 with a section of leaders now calling for the resignation of the cabinet secretaries whose ministries are leading in these corruption scandals that we've seen. That is, to be exact, the CS Education and the CS Health. Let's talk about another story that you're going to get into this morning. After 45 billion shillings NTSA deal, tycoons eye sugar trade. That story has been covered on page 7, all right, on how businessmen Fayyad Abdul Zarak Sheikh and Jabir Abdul Nasser El Kandi, who are eyeing a 45 billion smart driving license tender, have made an aggressive entry into the sugar industry in the country. That story has been covered on page 7 of the Daily Nation. And by the way, all these stories, if not some of them, have also been covered on our social media platforms. That is at Lookup TV, across all of them. That is on TikTok, Instagram. Also, we're on Snapchat as well, so you can check us out there. Let's clear this review with what's happening on the Standard. And there's a story that we opened our program this morning with, and they're saying, stop this mess. Jubilant fighters boast of seizing farms in Mandera and even thank Kenya for the warm welcome, just like we spoke this morning, as citizens flee their homes and government maintains an ominous silence. There is no isolated incident from classrooms in Mandera turned into barracks to fishermen gunned down on Lake Turkana. Kenyans are left to bury their dead and abandon their homes as the officials look away. The president is keen on politics. That's what the Standard is saying this morning. The CDF is missing in action while the Defense Cabinet Secretary is only seen on the lawns of State House during cabinet meetings. That's what they're saying this morning. And by the way, if you follow what's going on online, and we're going to talk about that this morning as well, briefly, before we jump into a big conversation. Majority of Kenyans are crying on the ground in Turkana County. All right, big faces there of the CS, Interior, and the President. Let's listen to what majority of residents talking about this morning. They're saying that I've moved my 92-year-old husband to Suftu together with our children on a day mid last month when the village turned to a battleground for Jubaland and Somalia National Army. That is according to Fatuma Abdul Hassan, a Mandera resident. The Standard even this morning has a quote from a Jubaland fighter who's saying that Kenyans are a friend and as accommodated as well. Since early August, after a fight broke out between us and the federal government forces who invaded our base in Belet, Hawa, we have no problem with the people of Mandera. That is a Jubaland fighter. All right? But who accommodated them? That's the question the majority of Kenyans are asking this morning. Did we accommodate them? And why is the government not acting fast then to make sure that indeed they are removed from some of the areas that they have got accommodated at the Horn of Kenya? Interesting stories that are coming from that part of our country this morning. So hopefully the government really moves in fast and make sure that everything is done and moved fast. Okay, what are Kenyans talking about this morning? Just 3 minutes then, before we start our conversation this morning. Turkana County is trending, and we do know why it's trending. It's because of what's going on at the Horn of Africa as regards the Jubilant forces that have taken some parts of the country. Now, here's what majority of Kenyans are talking about this morning. I'm just going to read 3 tweets this morning. This is Kalenjin Nation, all right? That's what they call themselves this morning. They're asking the president to stop this mess, Mr. President. That's what they're saying this morning as regards the Jubilant forces occupying some parts of Mandera. Also, this morning we do have Akan who's saying, here's the thing, we've seen previous governments moving fast to make sure that security in the country is restored. Hopefully the government moves in fast to make sure that Jubilant forces are kicked out of the country. That's what Akan is saying this morning. Now, finally, on this one, I'll read a tweet here from Samuel Lekesa, who's saying, our country deserves peace and tranquility. Hopefully, this is done and dusted as fast as it can this morning. That's what it is. All right, let's look at some other things that are trending this morning. CS Duale is trending, and we do know why. He's one of those CSs whose ministry has been trending for the negative reasons, the corruption cases that have marred the health docket. To be exact, the CS said that he stopped a 10.7 billion shillings corruption scandal. But then, that revelation right there, and after a series of other revelations that indeed painted that ministry as one of the most corrupt as it is right now. A section of members of parliament have already said they're collecting signatures to have the CS taken out of that office. And if that isn't going to happen, then what next? Because the CS is also saying that indeed there is corruption that's going on in that ministry, and I'm fighting it. So it is his word against the members of parliament's word. Let's see what majority of Kenyans are saying. This is Boni Kalowale, who's saying, Dr. Abdi Mohammed and Masi Mwangangi must be arrested over the 24 billion shillings SHA scandal. That's according to Senator Kalwale this morning. And Derwan Jiru this morning was saying, CS Dwale, fix the corruption in your docket fast before giving us empty motivational quotes. Dirty water may grow plants, but dirty politics chokes nations. Tutumia akili. I'm not gonna read the rest of it, but actually it's not an abuse. Tutumia akili angamia hapa. I don't know what you meant by that. All right, that is according to Degwan Jiru. Lastly, this morning, let's read this. This is Muguna Mutiri, who sings, Kenya's roller coaster cinema must be crazy. All right, that you do know that as a country you're in a serious mess when the likes of Peter Salasya stand firm against people like CS Dwale, while the Enigma, all right, Raila Amolo Odinga is defending the likes of Governor Sakaja. Ends with corruption must end, let's fix our country. That's exactly what it is that you're waking up to this morning in terms of your dailies and what your trends are this morning. We have a lot of conversations that are going to follow, but just like we started this morning, we asked you where were you 15 years ago, when we celebrated our new constitution. But 10 years on, Are you happy with its 15 years on it, sorry? Are you happy with its implementation? And where do we start those conversations from? Is it us who are to blame or the political class that is to blame? This morning, we introduce that conversation. We're going to be joined by two learned fellows in the studio this morning as we chat on that once we come back from this break shortly after this. Good morning. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiag.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza alikuwa na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mali.
Mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, "Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more."
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I loved music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like...
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed the life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
How easy is it for you to forgive someone who has hurt you? How easy is it? What are some tips, a person can apply to improve their public speaking skills?
We all have personality lazy somewhere around us.
In my mind, whenever I'm invited for a public speaking event, I don't like to put a lot of, accessories or too many colors.
What are the major things to look out when choosing a school for a child?
Another cheesy conversation starter is, men do this a lot. They look familiar. Have we met before? No. We met in
Nobody's buying that line again.
No, we don't. We don't buy it anymore.
This is Look Up TV, but most certainly you are watching The Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiageth. Welcome back. It has been 15 years since we celebrated our constitution, which we are running the country currently as it is. So for us now, it's just to go back and see exactly where we are 15 years on. And there are just a lot of areas that we've made proper advances on. There are other areas that we've not really made proper advances on. So this morning, we'll take a look back and see how we've come forward 15 years down the line. This morning then, let me take time to introduce the guests who are joining us in the studio this morning. I do know that indeed we are expecting our next guest to be in the studio shortly. This morning we are going to be joined by Thiongo Samuel, who is an aspiring MCA, Gilgil Ward. But in the studio, we are glad to be joined by Lena Marty, who is a lawyer and public administration advocate. How are you doing?
Morning, Simba. I'm doing well.
Happy to see you around.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Of course, these are the conversations that we are going to have from now all the way for the next couple of minutes. You can also be part and parcel of this conversation this morning online and Look Up TV across all of them this morning. So let's then jump into our conversation. Lena, I don't know where we were 15 years ago when we celebrated the promulgation of a new constitution. How would you summarize 15 years on? Have we made advances, or are we still in the implementation process? Somebody told me yesterday that people are still calling this constitution a new constitution. Should we stop calling it a new constitution 15 years on?
I think I'm one of the people that are still calling it the new constitution, but not to talk about time, but to talk about, make a distinction between the old constitution and the constitution that was promulgated in 2010.
Yes.
For me, I find that we have really made a lot of advancements in our political space, leadership space, which of course has translated to also the economic situation in our country.
Yes.
If I were to choose between the current and the former constitution, I would still choose this constitution, because this constitution has come with a lot of, one of the things that it came up with is devolution. Right now, I think if you talk to a Kenyan out there, we are all aware of what is happening. So there has been that know-how, there has been civic education that has been carried out. We are all now participating in what is happening in our country.
Yes.
So for me, if you ask me, yes, we have really made advancements, but also there's also the part of implementation. If there's anything that we have failed, because I'll say this, which of course seems like a cliche, but it's the truth, that we have the best progressive constitution, but implementation of the same is a problem. And if we are to really fully achieve the ideal Kenya that we would want, implementation is number one. Actually, if today we were to follow and implement each and everything in our constitution, we'll even be better than Singapore. We'll be better than the first world countries, because our constitution is one of the best in the world.
That's it.
Yes.
Pretty much. And it's a good thing that you're starting on devolution, because that has been what majority of governors in this country have really hit even the current president and the former president on. Let me take you back to what they were saying about Uhuru Kenyatta. In fact, he was castigated for stifling 100% devolution. In fact, up to now, we're still trying to figure what services from the national government should be completely ceded to the county governments. You'd think that conversation would die with Uhuru Kenyatta. Just recently, actually last week, President Dr. William Ruto is in a fight with the governors in this country. He's telling them, look here, if you're going to do business with us, because we're also supposed to give you money that's supposed to run those counties, you are going to have to be forced to procure all your services electronically. And you would think it will start there and end there. There's this feeling that some services like health, 15 years on, should be 100% devolved. Let's talk about the NCDF kitty again, which is what Raila Amolo Odinga and the president are also getting fought heavily by members of parliament now as it is. If you look at what the law states, is that the services that that kitty is supposed to achieve, those are devolved services. So let's go right ahead and fully implement the law as it is to our constitution. But there are those little gremlins of holding to those functions or holding to that power. But when you look at what the constitution states, it's quite clear that by now we should have been making steps to completely distinguish what a county government is and its full services from what the national government really is. Is that the failure of the governors, or is it the failure of all the presidents we've had since the new, I don't want to call it new constitution now, look at me, since the constitution was put in place 15 years ago?
Okay, let me first address the conflict that we've had before. Simba, I don't know if it's a Swahili, I'm not really good in Swahili, but there's a saying that sijui Simba farasi wawili wakipigana, not to really like talk about the whole methali, but yes. The county government and the national government, you would expect a conflict because these are almost like two parts of, if I call them governments, that are trying to work together. There's the county government and then there's the national government. Yes. So of course you would expect a conflict, you'd expect misunderstandings, you would expect that there would be wrangles here and there, but it must not be conflict that tries to hinder their collaboration. Now, one thing about the constitution is that in as much as we would want to implement everything, not everything is capable of being implemented immediately. We will still continue figuring out some of these things. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to,
but would you say that 15 years on is long enough a time? 15 years on is long enough a time.
Of course, 15 years long is quite a long time because yes. Also we've had almost like, is it how many governments? 2013, 2017, and now 2022. So yes. We've almost like had like three governments into play. Yes. Yeah, I agree with you that by now we need to have figured some things out, but I also feel like there could be some kind of interpretation of the constitution in some of these things. Yes. So there's some kind of vagueness. This is a document that was written and all that by people. So what did the authors of this constitution try to bring out? Yes. I think one of the things that has, especially things to do with GCDF and all that, is the issue of also interpretation of the constitution.
That's it.
Yeah, so basically, I feel like this is something, you see, the thing about the constitution, let me tell you, and that's why I was telling that some things will take time, is that a constitution is not rigid. So as time goes on, there's also the kind of interpretation that will try to come out later onwards.
Yes.
And also it will mandate us to try and change some things that they can be able to accommodate the current problems.
That's it.
Yeah.
Would it be a negative on our side to try and change a document that you would say hasn't been in play for a long time? Are we going back to those guys who went to the Bomas of Kenya and gave us that document and tell them, well, you made mistakes here? Mm-hmm. When constitutions like the US Constitution, if you look at how many times they've been amended, you will start to count, and it won't be that much as some of the oldest constitutions that we do know. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You see, I was taught in law school, yes. and I think it's also in history that a constitution must not be rigid. It must be able to accommodate the current times. Times are different. Mm-hmm. Right now, the challenge that we had in 2013 are not the same challenge that we have in 2022. In 2013, we were still trying to figure out.
Would you say so?
Yeah, the challenge that in 2013 we were still trying to figure out, like, it was like a pilot moment whereby we were wondering how are we even going to operate now that the county government is coming into play. How are we going to operate? It was like that teething moment.
Yes.
But now in 2025 things are different, and we are facing different problems. So if there's a chance that some of the things do not match to the current issues that we have,
yes.
and because also 2010 and 2025 at different times, then it can be amended.
Yes.
It's okay for it to be amended, and the power lays with the people.
That's it.
Not the political class.
Yes.
So the people it must come from the people.
Yes.
It must not come from some quarters out there, boardroom meetings and all that. It must come from people themselves. The amendments, any amendments to be made, any appeals to be made in the Constitution must come from the people.
That's it.
Yes.
If you look at this conversation about how devolution has gone on, I do remember probably in the first 5 years, you would say, well, governors are really trying to understand what their powers are, what their functions are, what they can do to make sure that the national government understands that these are now different entities from the national government. You would give it to them, but you won't make a case for them, as well majority of governors are even struggling to get a proper revenue share that is given to them by the Constitution from all the governments that have been in place since we came up with this new document. Why is it that governors haven't found a way to make sure that some of the functions that we're talking about here this morning, education, health, are 100% devolved to the county governments as per the law? Why are we still talking about implementation 15 years on? Is it okay, Lena, to say, now on the part of devolution, we should solely lay this blame to the governors only, and that's it?
No, not really, absolutely not really. First, with regards to, there's something that you said in the beginning about revenue sharing and all that.
That's it.
The governors are struggling to get the revenue allocated to them. Now, I agree with the Constitution, and this is not to try to say that the Constitution is wrong and all that, because the Constitution and Article 203 says that 15% of the national revenue shall go to the counties from the national government. And it should be like that. But now, Simba, even sometimes, when you want to buy something in your house, you want to probably get something, you will look at your financial capability. You'll say, yes, I need kubaya. Maybe sasa nijaribu next month. You look at the physical reality of our country. Sometimes you may not be able to really get or to be able to allocate that 15% to, because of some of the priorities that we have. For instance, just let me finish.
Yes.
Let me finish. Like, one of the things that we are really struggling with is the national debt.
That's it.
I mean, it's one of the key things that we need to continue paying. So even when you're coming up with a budget, we need to make it a priority before we talk about the counties and all that. So for me, I feel like the physical reality sometimes may impede the allocation of the budget, 15% as it is expected from the Constitution, to the counties.
That's it.
Yes.
So somebody gave me an example yesterday that when the national government says that we don't have the money to give you 15% of the national revenue, this is the example that they give. It's like somebody telling you, I'm gonna cook for you breakfast, all right? But I'm gonna give you the bread, you go get the tea and sugar. It's not that they're not saying that we won't give it to you. They're only saying that when it comes to this bread, you leave it to us. You go make the tea and buy the sugar. But for the bread, we're gonna give it to you. And that's what majority of the governors have been pushing for. They're saying, well, we're not saying that you don't give us this money. Yes, you have a ministry, like the health ministry, that is in operation. All we are saying is that you fund it, give us that money, let's operate it at the county levels. Is that not what it is, Elena? Where the national government, it's okay to go to parliament and say, you pass for members of parliament to have a certain percentage of the NCDF fund. NCDF fund, which they've been told is supposed to go into development of schools, development of infrastructure in the county governments, development of hospitals. And then the governor's asking, hold on, so why can't you give us that money so that we run the fund as per the law? Don't you see that somebody somewhere is saying, yes, we're going to give you that money, but not directly to you. The money is there, but it's not going to come to you directly. We're going to give it to the members of parliament. We're going to come in and develop their constituencies. But like, these constituencies, are they not found in the county governments?
I think one of the things that we struggle as a country is the duplicity of roles.
That's it.
Because I agree with you. I do not understand how the members of parliament are given money, apparently, let's say, for instance, for bursaries, yes. And the money is still going back to the schools, and most of the schools are within the county realm. So you find that there's a little bit of duplicity of roles there. With this money for bursaries could have been given to the counties, that yes. The counties can be able to solve the problem in the education sector. But also another thing that I struggle with is I feel like the county governments themselves, especially for ministries, critical ministries like the Ministry of Health, it should not just be left to the county governments alone. I feel like there needs to be a working together between the national government and the county governments so that you can be able to achieve a wholesome, development within critical ministries like the Ministry of Health. So, because so far, using and just being a layman person,
yes. Yes.
Not just looking at the constitution, but also being a Kenyan who has witnessed what is happening in our country. So far, we have not seen the capacity of the counties to be able to handle their roles properly. Truth be said, we have not seen that they don't have the capacity to be able to handle these devolution roles properly. A lot of corruption is happening within the counties. So now imagine corruption within the counties, and then we have not build a mechanism to be able to cushion the same. Like for instance, now the national government coming into play in the Ministry of Health, So yes. I feel like, yes, the counties need to be given more power in yes. their devolution roles. But also I feel like for now, there needs to be a collaboration between the national government and the county governments.
Yes.
Yes.
But, and here's another question that we really have to respond to this morning as well. And it's a good thing that we're talking about this at a mm-hmm. time when the president is fighting with the governors.
Yes.
Again, the constitution is clear mm-hmm. that these entities are separate entities. They're completely different from the national government. That the only responsibility that the national government has to the counties is to make sure that they have the funds that the counties are supposed to use to run their business. In fact, county governments have their own bylaws. We've seen how different counties are coming up with their own bylaws just to under revenue collection, revenue implementation programs, development programs. That is something that the president, who heads the national government, is not supposed to come in and interfere as clearly as it's stated, as stipulated in the law. Would you say that even 15 years on, all the presidents we've had, maybe devoid of President Mwai Kibaki, because he just came in when this constitution was quite new. You say that our former presidents, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, the current president, Dr. William Ruto, they still want to hold the powers be nationally so that they have a say on what goes on in these county governments. Maybe to some extent, that's what we're talking about, legacy projects and legacy declarations, as the governors are calling them, that are breaking the law. And the governors are struggling to differentiate why we're having devolution when you have a man up there who's telling you what you're supposed to do in your county governments, Lena.
See, the thing about administration and everything, politics will always come into play.
That's it.
And there's one thing, I don't know whether to use this word, but authoritarianism.
Yes.
We realize that when in most of the countries across the world, not just in Kenya, when people come in, when leaders come in, the first thing that they want to do is they want to wield so much power so that they can have a say in what happens.
Yes.
Because they feel like with that power they can be able to make decisions, make their own decisions yes. effectively without yes. interference. And I can tell you for a fact that what the president is actually doing with the governors is trying to wield his power as the president, which of course is not right. And I believe that the counties need to be given the capability, the ability to be able to make their own decisions without interference.
Yes.
But just like I told you from the beginning, there has to be a collaboration between the two of them. They need to know how to be able to work together. So, I'm a bit confused on what needs to be done,
yes.
per se, because I feel like Also, the county governments have not proven their capability to be able to handle these devolution roles completely. And so I don't want all the powers given to them, but also don't want all the powers being left to the president to interfere in the devolution of the counties.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's move on to the next part of our conversation this morning, where Kenyans have really pointed out that we haven't really made progress, and it's a good thing that you're right within the profession. Judicial independence in this country, it's come under question. A couple of things we've seen since 2010 up to where we are right now, and recent events within the judiciary that have led to us to ask questions. What is really going on in the judiciary? We do understand what the law states, and in fact, the 2010 Kenyan Constitution really gave us a proper and clear separation of powers in these three arms of government. And it placed the judiciary at a very vantage point to guide the country in the right direction. Let me take you back to what Kenyans have witnessed over a couple of years since we celebrated this new constitution. Number one, court orders have not been a thing that has been adhered to in this constitution. We've seen incidences where the court gives multiple court orders on top of other court orders, but then nothing comes out of it. We've seen members of parliament and presidents, to be exact, abuse the judiciary directly. And when I say abuse, it's actually in black and white terms the meaning of the word abuse. But we haven't seen the judiciary act, even when we see this. Even when these presidents have transitioned from office, we really haven't seen anything that has been done to stop this. That we haven't seen the judiciary set precedents in this new constitution, despite the powers that the constitution gives them. What would be your comment on that, Lena?
First, I don't agree with you that the judiciary has not set precedents within the realm of the new constitution. I think with separation of powers came the independence of the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. And what the new constitution actually, now the 2010 constitution, envisaged was that these different levels of government would be able to work independently and without interference with each other.
Yes.
But now what we have seen, which is undermining the judiciary, you see, judiciary isn't seen as really the bigger of the three. Actually, the executive is seen as the bigger of the three, in as much as the three of them are actually equal. But now there's something that is happening within the judiciary, and that is undermining of the judiciary.
Yes.
Because not following court orders, especially by government officials, because those are the people that don't follow court orders. The common mwananchi that is out there who has stolen chicken will follow that court order, but the person that is up there will not follow that court order because they feel like they're in power. So what do you tell me?
Yes.
That sets a very bad precedent. You've said. That's why I was saying that I'm against what you've said, that the court hasn't set precedent. Because already a court order has been given. The judiciary has done its work. The implementation of that court order doesn't lie within the judiciary. It lies within another arm of government. So the judiciary is doing well in giving out the court orders. But what I feel like probably could also be an issue is that it's not capable of operating freely. Why? Because it's under siege. You see, the judiciary needs funds to operate. Most of the institutions need funds to operate. And so there is always the risk, especially when the former president came into power. You remember in 2017 what he said? He said tutaonana, you know, and there was this idea that the judiciary would get little funding because, you know, I mean, you've attacked the president. It's the same thing. There is that fear within the judiciary that, you know what, if we go against what the powers be say, our funding will be cut, and then it will be hard for us to be able to operate. As someone who has been in the judiciary for, within my profession, I can tell you for a fact that there is a lot of struggle in the judiciary. The funding is very little. The staff, the staff are suffocated and all that because they cannot be able to access funding. So you don't want to suffocate or make it worse than that. You want to be at your toes so that the government doesn't make or doesn't act against you anymore. So if you ask me, I feel like that is one of the things that is affecting the judiciary. Secondly, I also feel like there's a lot of political interference within the judiciary.
Yes.
It's exchanges. There are a lot of exchanges within the judiciary, and I always feel bad. Yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine about when Jesus Christ rebuked the teachers of the law and he called them, you brood of vipers. Yes. Because the teachers of the law were the custodian of the law and they were supposed to actually implement that law. But instead of implementing that law, they were the ones that were breaking it. So what you've actually been seeing is that the leaders that we have, because they're the makers of the law, the judiciary is to interpret the law. These makers of the law interfere with this very thing that they're supposed to be protecting, they're supposed to be guarding, they're supposed to be, being the custodian of the same. So for me, I'd feel like political interference and the fact that there is a little bit of intimidation, especially when it comes to budget cuts, budget finances and all that, is one of the things that are affecting the judiciary not to be able to carry out its mandate.
Yes.
Yes.
There's the feeling of continuation within the judiciary, even after we got this new constitution. So where we're saying that they haven't set precedents is that even with the clear separation of powers in the new constitution, areas that have really hit this country big, let's talk about big corruption cases, that the judiciary would have come in and said, this is how we're going to go about corruption cases in this country. If you look at the data that I was looking at yesterday, some of the longest cases in this country are corruption cases. That we haven't really felt the shift. That you have a judiciary that is really powerful within this new constitution, that has the powers to actually come in and say, well, in this country, corruption cases will have to be listened to within 1 year, done and summarized, so that we move away from them. That we haven't really seen that. Some of the cases, the biggest cases in this country that are sitting within the judiciary, some of them have gone long on 15 years after we actually brought this constitution into new light. There's the feeling of continuation that within the judiciary, despite of what we're saying, the political class intimidation, that we haven't seen the judiciary move in a certain direction. Do you also share the same sentiment?
One, I partially agree with you,
yes,
but I also don't agree with you completely. There's a mistake, of course, by the judiciary that some of these cases have taken very long.
Yes.
But also you realize that it's a two thing, it's a two people thing. That sometimes it's not just about the judiciary, but it's about also the parties.
Yes.
As a lawyer, I've seen this happen. You come to court, the court is very ready, but the parties are not ready. You're coming and the advocate is saying that, we cannot be able to, our witness is not available, our witness is sick. And even as we talk right now,
yes,
the courts are actually giving dates for next year. I told you something before that one of the things that is affecting the judiciary is that they're suffocated when it comes to manpower.
Yes.
So now you find that it becomes very hard for them to operate effectively. So instead of them being able to, like for a magistrate right now, if you look at a magistrate course list, you can find 70 cases. This is one person that is handling them. We are all human beings. No one can handle that amount of cases, effectively and that fast.
Yes.
So that's why we realize that hearings are being given the dates for next year instead of this year being handled very fast, because now do you stretch the magistrate? No, you cannot do that. So the blame lies with the judiciary, yes, but also the blame lies with the government as well, and the blame also lies with us.
Yes.
Yes.
In terms of the judiciary saying, and we do know that the Constitution gives them that power, I like the way you say that, indeed, when you look at the rest of the citizenry in this country, if you defy a court order, you better pray that your God is on your side, because the courts will come down on you heavy. And we've seen those examples in this country. So when it comes to setting precedents in this country, you would like to think that the best way to do that is to first implement that in the political class. But you do not think that we're going to leave you just because you're big shot in this country. Some of the court orders that we've seen, by the way, Lena, are quite, I would say, are quite shocking to the guys who've just decided they're not gonna follow them. Why haven't we seen big arrests in this country because we do know very well what the law states, that if you defy a court order, then the courts are going to come for you. Some of them have gone up to defamation. All right? We really haven't seen the court, the judiciary act in this country so that we say, oh, in this country, if you dare do this under this new constitution, then you're going to face the music. We haven't seen that, Lena. That's why I'm saying that there is the feeling of continuation, that it's not changed at all.
Selective administration of justice,
yes,
is what is affecting our country.
Yes.
And I always feel bad because I admit that that's very true. It's
yes,
happening within the judiciary.
Yes.
And there's very little that is being done about it.
Yes.
If you're a common mananchi, you break the law, you know, in 15 minutes, you're already sentenced, you know, and that case has already been closed. But when it comes to someone who is a big shot, the cases take long, and also there's some kind of, you know, favorism that is being accorded to them. They're not being treated as the common mananchi. It's very true, and it's something that needs to change. But Simba, I hope you get what I mean, that for judiciary to be able to act effectively, there needs to be a goodwill from everyone.
And that's what majority of Kenyans are saying, that the judiciary is one of that, is that arm that the Constitution hasn't given goodwill. The Constitution has given it powers to act in accordance to the law. For president,
yes,
for a member of parliament, you need goodwill, you know, for you to implement your projects and to do all that. But then the judiciary in our Constitution has been given power beyond goodwill, that you are supposed to act and straighten the law. You're supposed to be the law, you're supposed to be the law boss of the country. But then when we say that they need goodwill, Lena, is that where we start to get it wrong? That's why majority of Kenyans are saying.
But the
yes,
truth is that, for instance, a ruling has been given against a particular individual.
Yes.
The court doesn't have the mandate to arrest someone. That's beyond the realm of the court. You know, that's the work of the police. The police is entirely in a different arm of the government. So if now they don't arrest, who is to cater for that? Is it the courts or is it the police? It's not the courts, because the courts have done their work.
Yes.
So there has to be a synchronization.
What, Lena, maybe just make it clear before I even recognize Thiongo joining us in the studio this morning. He's been a victim of schools opening. Traffic is a lot, especially around our studios, by the way. So when our president stands and says, whatever the courts have said, we are not going to listen to that. We will move forward despite what the courts have said. And not just once, severally. And not just the president, but even members of parliament who stand up and say, well, we don't care, Bwana. We're going to move forward and continue with what we are doing. And that has happened over and over again. How is the judiciary supposed to react?
Official.
That's it.
In court.
Yes.
That is where the court has done its work, and it has done its tools. It's now, the rest is beyond it. Like you have said, Simba, a ruling, a court that has been given against the president. The court has done its work. What else? What else does it need to do? If the president violates, there's a contempt of court. Like, the court will just rule, there's a contempt of court.
So what next after that? Is that what we failed as the judiciary then, to set precedents?
Exactly.
Because we do know that if you defy a court order, or you get into the realm of contempt of court, and we've seen it severally in this country, that there has to be the next step. Even before arrests, because the court has the power. Lena, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that today, if the court rules that I am not supposed to do ABCD, and I'm served, all right, and I go right ahead and do it, I can get arrested, and that someone has to come from that specific court that issued that ruling. But we haven't seen it. In many cases that would have set precedents in this country since 2010 to date, we haven't seen it. I'll give you an example of the ruling on Miguna. The courts made several rulings on it. Several. They said, allow that guy to come back to the country. And the lawyers kept on getting back to the court, and they got served with papers of court orders saying that he needs to come back to this country. But guess what? Leaders will stand in the open and say he's not coming. So that's a direct violation of a court order that you're sitting with. What should follow? Lena, are we saying, well, the court did its job? So what then? That's the president that we haven't seen set by the judiciary in this country. Just respond in 1 minute, and then after that, I introduce Theo to the conversation.
I think I have understood you.
And maybe just to introduce you to the conversation this morning, we're going to go on a tiny breather, by the way, and then come back and then try to catch up with where we are. We're talking about 15 years on. Just a quick summary. Take 1 minute. How would you look at it? Have we met steps, or we're still stuck in the old ways of running this country?
Thank you very much, Simba, and it's good to see you. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
I think the last time I came here was last year, even before the Mandamano. I want to say a good morning to Kenyans, and also mention that I think that the Constitution of 2010 was one of the biggest things we ever got as a country.
Yes.
And one of the things I want to point out in the Constitution is devolution. 15 years on, I still would say that it's one of the best things we've ever gotten as a country. Reason being, the main reason for devolution was to bring services closer to the people, was to bring government closer to the people. And we've seen that happen in a greater extent in the country.
Yes.
We've seen roads in the rural areas, we've seen hospitals, we've seen dispensaries, we've seen a lot of developments. But like we say, we've had a lot of hits and misses. We've had a lot of good things about the devolution particularly, and also a lot of misses in regards to devolution.
That's it.
One of the misses being devolved corruption.
I want you to hold your thought right there, Thiong'o. Once we come back, because actually even devolved corruption is exactly what we're going to talk about next. Once we come back to this conversation, we take a tiny breather. Once we come back, then we're going to go into our last part of our conversation this morning. Where are we 15 years on? Do you believe it's been more misses than hits, or more hits than misses, especially on the judiciary in this country? Do you think that we've gotten to that level where we're saying that indeed we've set a precedent? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu, kwa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
people are there to belittle you. When people are questioning you,
if you don't move fast, of course, yes, you lose
Yeah.
it, but then it's not us to push you.
but you do not know the God who has been molding me, what has he been doing to me?
The deep and mature conversations of empowerment for you with a curious mind and an appetite for oriented conversations.
I concur with what you're saying. You plan your finances, you can easily live without a debt.
An engaging safe space of free expression and truthfulness with an upheld vibrance, motivation and happiness.
So many children who are there, they are not living their dreams.
Join us for deep conversations with Zipporah Gashushe every Saturday from 8 p.m. The Deeper Conversations on Look Up TV.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Welcome back. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. We are talking about 15 years on, looking back to what has been our constitution, hits and misses. I'm asking you this morning, do you think we've settled on more misses or hits? Now, let's then jump into our last conversation this morning. Fiango, you are talking about how for you it's been devolution that has been the greatest hit in this new constitution, Yes.
Yeah, so before we went for the break, I was talking about we've had a lot of hits and also a lot of misses.
Yes.
But then again, the goal and the intention of the drafters of the Constitution was for us as a country to have more hits than misses. If you look at some of the counties, we've had some counties doing so well in terms of development. We've had counties that are performing tremendously well in terms of development. One of them being Moranga County, the other one being Homa Bay County. And we've had other counties, and we've had reports even from the Auditor General mentioning that we've had counties that have spent like 1% in terms of development. And I think those are some of the things that are affecting this course and rather devolution.
Yes.
But I think much as we're talking about hits and misses, and much as we are pointing out fingers on whether we are right or wrong, we need to talk about how do we better devolution? How do we strengthen oversight? How do we strengthen our county assemblies and our audit offices to be able to give them a sharper teeth in order to be able to curb wastage? How do we cut the ballooning wage bill in the county governments? How do we, because you find that most of the money that is channeled to counties goes into what we call the recurrent expenditure. Economists will tell you recurrent expenditure does not generate any revenue. We need to channel more money on development expenditure. We need to channel more money on better roads, on water, on electricity, on building markets and infrastructures that bring us revenue as a county.
Yes.
We also need to talk about devolved corruption, because much as we devolved government, we also devolved a menace called corruption.
That's it.
That we expanded the corruption that was up here, and it went down there to the common mwananchi.
Yes.
And that's why I've always been a proponent of technology, a proponent of things like e-procurement, a proponent of things like cashless revenue collection measures, and things like open what we call open dashboards, where citizens can be able to log in and see how much the government is the county government is collecting, how much generally what is happening in the county, yes, in terms of transparency. And I've been seeing a lot of developments lately because Treasury rolled out something called the e-procurement system. Yes, and I saw governors coming all out to bash the system. They were bending over backwards to ensure the system does not see the light of the day. But then you ask yourself, are these governors really genuine about what they're talking about? Is it that they do not want the system, or is it that the system is coming to close all the loopholes that they were using to enhance corruption? Yes. Because let me tell you something, Simba. When every shilling is tracked electronically, then we eliminate these things called, or these people called, the human middlemen. You see, even in local markets, you have the farmer and you have the market. But in between the farmer and the market, there's something called a middleman. Yes. And most middlemen like swindling the farmer of their hard-earned money. It's the same as what is happening. We have governors as human middlemen, people who are enhancing corruption. And that is what e-procurement is coming to solve. We want transparency. We want accountability in our county governments. Yes. Because, Simba, I've been hearing a lot of people, others saying that we need to go back to 8 provinces, others saying 14, others saying we need more than 47 counties actually. But then the big question is, do Kenyans in Turkana, do Kenyans in Wajir, do Kenyans in Mandera want to go back to the 8 provinces? Do they really want Nairobi to take control back again? Is that really what they want? In my opinion, I don't think that is what they want. Yes. Because it is courtesy of devolution that we have more ECDs in the counties. It is courtesy of devolution that we have better roads and infrastructure in the counties. So I think what Kenyans are demanding is a devolution that delivers. That's it. A devolution that works. A devolution that is transparent, and a devolution that is accountable. Pretty much. It's a good thing that now Thiongo is back to where we are, since we're talking about integrity and public participation. Is one of those areas that we really have to talk about this morning in as regards our constitution. Let's begin with chapter 6 on integrity. As a Kenyan who follows what goes on in the county governments and in the national government, I cry every morning when I wake up. And you and I have been treated by a lot of headlines from the Controller Budget saying County A spent 300,000 on buying a wheelbarrow. County B spent 10,000 shillings on procuring 1 pen. And in that document, you do know very well that this county boss signed off against that expenditure. And they do not lie. It's well broken down. And then we also listening to the Senate briefings that the county governors normally go and attend at the discretion of the Senate. And they ask proper questions. Number one, issues of employment. The guys who've been employed in these county governments who have no papers at all to show for it. Some county governors have gone in and even employed 5 people in one position. And also the bigger issue of ghost workers at the county governments. Do you think maybe we need to go and relook chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution, maybe now, and say that 15 years on, it's not working? That we need to say that if anything happens to a national leader, whether in the national government or in the county governments, anything that contravenes the law, then they need to walk out immediately. In fact, the law states that. But then, where is the problem with implementation? Because we can't sit here and say that 15 years on, we haven't seen
a dove of people walk out of this county government and national governments solely on Chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution?
I would like to disagree with you that they need to walk out, not just walk out, but there needs to be a proper prosecution.
Yes.
That is a problem that we have, because we have people stealing, and then they resign, and then they go and enjoy our money in Cape Town by the beach. You know, what have we done? Nothing. We don't get the money back. You know, then someone else comes and steals the same amount of money, and they go. But either way, the Constitution, Chapter 6 of the Constitution actually is both, it has both moral and legal perspectives.
Yes.
And moral is more of you. And then there's the legal perspective whereby institutions have been created to be able to deal with things like corruption. Now, I can tell you something that I always say, that for us to be able to deal with corruption, it doesn't just come from the political space alone. It has to come from down here. Because Simba, today, you may probably, just using probably, you may probably go to a school and you look and you know you want your child to be admitted to that school. It's a national school, it's a school with some kind of glory. And so you're like, I would want my child to be here. And then you reach there and you're told, the head teacher says, you know what, for your child to be admitted, I've bid 10,000. And then you look and say, 10,000 kidogo compared to what my child will be gaining here.
Yes.
And then you go ahead and give the bribe or the money. You go to the roads, by the roads, the police officers are collecting whatever, bribes from each and every driver that passes there. Corruption begins from down here as we go up. And the reason why that mwalimu is not taking 1 billion from you is because he doesn't have the access to that 1 billion. He only has access to 10,000. But the person that is up there has access to. So for us to be able to fight corruption, we must first, as Kenyans, stop being beneficiaries of corruption. It cannot be otherwise. It has to be both sides.
Yes.
Because the Constitution of Kenya says that the people of Kenya are sovereign. So actually even EACC says that we are going to collaborate with the people. It doesn't work alone. We are going to collaborate with the people. So number one problem, we need to first begin to stop to deal with corruption from an individual, from a societal perspective. Can you say no to corruption?
Yes.
People are saying that, at 2027, when someone comes and says, gives you money, and you don't want them, just take the money and vote for another person. But where is this money coming from? You're benefiting from that corruption.
Yes.
It's something that you're still entrenching, something that you're supporting.
Yes.
But anyway, the legal means. We have a problem with the dealing of corruption, or how corruption cases are dealt in Kenya. And this is because I never see prosecution of those cases until the very end. Actually, if anything, those cases are there and then they suddenly disappear. But the problem is not just about, the problem is also with the institutions that have been mandated to fight this corruption. There's a problem with our institutions because the institutions, the form which these institutions have taken, either the people are not capable, the people are subdued, or number two, it doesn't have the mandate to go beyond or to deal with the case, with that case entirely.
Yes.
For instance, EACC. EACC doesn't have prosecutorial powers. It can only investigate. It can only create awareness, so it can investigate, but then it passes over the role to the relevant institution, which is now the ODPP, to now initiate prosecutions, but it doesn't do that. So now, because the institutions, most of these institutions are at loggerheads. They cannot work together. Most of them always have a challenge with working together.
Yeah.
So because of that, the dealing of corruption becomes very hard because of the form of the institution.
Yes.
So for me, I feel like, number one, we need to have people that are capable of dealing with corruption. Number one, the ship, I always say that the ship is as good as the captain. If the captain is not willing, we will not go anywhere.
That's it.
So we need to have people that are ready, and then also our institution need to be strengthened and given the independence to be able to deal with these issues.
That's it.
Yes.
Fantastic. Fiona, I gotta get your sentiments on that. The Chapter 6 is quite clear, like how Lena is putting it. It's got both a moral side to it and also a legal implication to it. Should we maybe now delete the moral aspect of Chapter 6 and stress on the legal side only, so that we see some of these issues of integrity in Kenya that we're talking about in this constitution just to come to an end finally?
I think there are two sides to to this.
Yes.
There's the side of the citizens in contributing to these leaders they're calling corrupt, and there's the other side of these institutions that are supposed to help us fight corruption.
Yes.
And I want to begin with us, the citizens. I think we are great contributors to corruption. One, you look at the leaders we elect, you find that a leader has been charged with a corruption case of around maybe 390 million.
Yes.
They go to court, taken to court, they're released on a bail of around 50 million. How much does the leader remain with? 340 million. The leader comes to the citizens, churns out handouts, money, and he's elected into office. And then as the citizens, we start complaining, oh, this leader has stolen, this leader is doing this and this, we are not seeing hospitals, we are not seeing roads. But then, we don't pause and reflect and ask ourselves, where does the rubber meet the road? Where does the problem begin? Because it begins with us as citizens. We are the ones who are great contributors to corruption.
Yes.
The other thing I would want to talk about is these institutions. I think for a very long time, we've used the excuse that EACC can only handle a case up to a certain point, and then its mandate ends there, and then it has to pass it to maybe the ODPP, and then the ODPP prosecutes and now sends it to another level. And I think that we've used that as an excuse to not really fight corruption to the core. Because you find that EACC has done its part and then says, yangu imeishia hapa. So let me send it to ODPP. They do their part, send it to the next level. And you find that derails the fight against corruption. The other thing is we have two categories of people in this corruption argument. We have what we call the big fish and the small fish. Rarely, when you listen to these reports by the EACC and the ODPP,
yes,
the people they arrest are people you do not know, are people you've never heard of. Those are corrupt. You know that this person is outrightly corrupt. You'll never hear them getting arrested or being charged or being prosecuted. Why? Because only the small fish are treated as the sacrificial lamb, just to give a picture that, as institutions, we are fighting corruption. We are helping in fighting corruption. But they're not going for the people we want. They're not going for who we call the big fish in this country.
Yes.
The day we'll see EACC or ODPP dealing with a case of a president, and we see the president being transported to committee, we'll be able to say that at least now we are living up to the expectation of the 2010 Constitution.
That's it.
But as of now, we will continue just oscillating in one position. Talking about corruption,
yes,
year in, year out.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now,
Can I buttress something that is...
just in a minute, yes. Mm-hmm.
Most of them are not charged is because as citizens we provide cover for them.
Yes.
Like for instance, when the former deputy president was being impeached, there were allegations of corruption. And one of the things that you could hear by the streets, those side streets, they're saying that, if they dare touch regard they have touched Mrima, they're going to see the way people are going to come out to the streets and defend him, because we provide cover. It's the same thing that the tag is the same tag that the current Ministry of Health CS is using, saying, you know what, my community is being attacked.
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty much. Now, the next part, and I would like us to attack those 2 points together. It's on public participation and the Bill of Rights in our Constitution, which is quite clear. I mean, if you read it, I was going through it yesterday, I felt empowered that, I can do this in this country. I've got the right of association. I've got the right to say anything that I want to say. I've got the right to publish anything that I feel is right within my conscience. Lena, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Participation and the Bill of Rights, because those have been a thorny issue in this new constitution. In fact, in majority of the governments, and to be very exact, in President Uhuru Kenyatta's government and President Ruto's government, especially President Ruto's government.
So the question?
So the question is this. Do you think that the governments are outrightly stifling public participation and are also implementing selectively the Bill of Rights in this country?
Of course. Direct answer, of course. And Simba, I tell you, I think every time that I try to interact with people from other countries, they're always like, you know, you guys are so lucky, your Bill of Rights, you know, you guys can just express yourself freely. And I'm like, yes. Yes, but the truth is, it has even been limited. I don't want to be selective, Simba, in, you know, dealing with the Bill of Rights. I can tell you for a fact that we have rights, but also the rights, some of these rights, they should not be that they should not be to a point that, you know, they hurt your neighbor.
Yes.
They are limited to a certain capacity.
Yes.
But now the problem is we've had problems in the past, even presently, whereby the governments try to stifle the Bill of Rights because they feel like the citizens are too much. You know, you feel people attacking you, and you would want, you know, this freedom of expression to be limited.
Yes.
But the truth is that cannot be done and should never be done, because the Bill of Rights, which of course I feel like we have one of the best, needs to be as it is. It needs to be, there needs to be no stifling or violation of the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
We need to be left to do what has been. If it's freedom, we have those freedom. If it's rights, we have those rights.
That's it.
Yes.
But just before I cross over to Thiongo on this one then, on public participation, is also another big area that has come to light, that before the government goes on and introduces bills and goes on and introduces new laws and of doing things, that the citizenry has to participate in this process. Lena, you and I think were treated to a very nice spectacle in Parliament when the members of Parliament fell out with the president, and they came out outrightly and say, and I will quote, "This president has given us bills that the people of Kenya didn't want, but we helped him pass them." Why are you shocked that a member of Parliament can stand in the National House and say that when the Constitution clearly states that if the public says no, then it means no?
The year I visited Jerusalem, Simba, I was not shocked. I was not shocked because this has always been the trend. On paper, public participation. And I can tell you for a fact that that public participation is probably, it only happens with 15 people in Sarova.
Yes.
The person at the grassroots doesn't even know what is happening. So I wasn't shocked per se, but that's not the ideal, that's not what our constitution envisaged when it talked about public participation. Because anything, the laws, you see the constitution says, Article 1 says that the sovereign power belongs to the people. And then the people shall exercise it directly or indirectly by, you know, electing representatives.
Yes.
So any representative that sits at any position in Parliament, Senate, they are there to represent me.
Yes.
And they are there because not all of us can be in Senate, not all of us can be in Parliament. So before anything is passed, I need to be asked. You know, I am actually the CEO, so I need to give my recommendations before anything is passed.
Yes.
Their work is to actually review what it is that the citizens have said, debate on it, and see where can we make improvements. So if that is not done, then that's not public participation.
Pretty much. Thiongo, on the same as well, on the Bill of Rights and public participation. But I would like for you to begin on public participation. Take 2 minutes on this, because somebody's killing us, wants us to get out of the studio.
Allow me to begin with the Bill of Rights, Simba. Yes. I think sometimes I sit and ask myself, and I wonder whether we should really blame the president in regards to this, you know, violation of Bill of Rights. Yes. This is why I say so. You know, we elected a president who never supported the 2010 Constitution. It is true. You know, you ask yourself, you know, it means he never stood for any of these things that we are discussing today. You know, we elected a president who was all out, going against the Bill of Rights, going against public participation. And we are here condemning him when we go to the streets and he tear gases us all the time. But that is neither here or there. I would want to say this. I think there's a lot of political immaturity.
Yes.
In this current regime.
Yes.
Because much as the previous regime wasn't that perfect, at least we saw some political maturity and at least upholding of the Constitution. We saw the President Uhuru Kenyatta at some point even leaving Twitter, exiting Twitter, because of the bashing that he was facing. I was expecting we would see the same in the current regime. If the president does not want to be called names, let him just focus on other things. Coming to fight us as young people in Twitter is, I think, below his caliber.
Yes.
The other thing on public participation, I think public participation has become a show in this country. It has become a formality. I come from Gilgil constituency, and I can tell you for free, Simba, that anytime there's a public participation, citizens are paid to attend the public participation. You are gathered. Some people are called and they are given some money to attend the public participation. Then how do you expect people who are paid to honestly air out their views? It has become a formality rather than something that should help us improve on policies, on governance, and all those things surrounding governance.
Yes.
So I think we've not lived up to the expectation of the 2010 Constitution.
Yes. We
have, to a larger extent, failed in terms of this thing we are calling public participation. And we've seen a lot of rights of citizens being violated. Nowadays, you find that even young people are afraid of going to the streets to express their views and their opinions, because we've seen a lot of people dying in the streets just because they went out there to say we want better roads. They went out there in the streets to say that we want better governance, that we want cabinet secretaries who can deliver in this country.
Yes.
So I think much as I'm a supporter of the 2010 Constitution and devolution, and everything that is in the 2010 Constitution,
yes,
I think it's important that we sit back and also reflect on how we rectify these misses.
Pretty much. Guess what? I wish we could continue, because I would have loved us this morning to touch on security and policing and fiscal accountability. Guess what? My director tells me that we gotta step out of the studio this morning. So take them back to the time that they joined us in our studio this morning and Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. Lena, Fiongo, thank you very much. Fiongo, next time you have to beat that traffic.
Yes, I will. Sorry for being late.
It is what it is, man. All right. I'll see you tomorrow for another conversation. Goodbye and good morning.
We value your feedback.